Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel for another card video. Today's card I'm starting with the Spun Sugar Distress ink, and I'm working on a piece of white cardstock, and I'm just trying to ink up my blending foam pad, getting plenty of ink on there because that spun sugar is such a light color that you really need a lot of that color on your foam blending tool to make an impact on your background. The second color I'm using is the Picked Raspberry. And then the third color is the Seedless Preserves. So you can see I have a different blending foam tool for each one. You don't really want to blend the colors too much on each blending tool because otherwise you're not going to get that true color on there. So then I'm going back in and blending these colors together a little bit more. You can see I'm adding some of that Picked Raspberry right over the Seedless Preserves, and then I'm just trying to blend that color out. The more ink you add, the better blend you're going to get. So you want to make sure that you add plenty of ink. And if you're having trouble blending your distress ink, you might want to try using a different kind of cardstock. The cardstock I like and that I'm using today is the Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor cardstock. If that doesn't work well for you, you could always try just a heavier pound cardstock or a different type of watercolor paper. So I made sure that this ink background was completely dried. I used my heat tool plenty of times and I let it air dry for a few hours, and I'm also using this powder tool because I'm going to be heat embossing on this, and if it is slightly damp, that embossing powder will definitely stick to it. So you just want to make sure that it's completely dried, and I did test it out a little bit beforehand to make sure that none of the embossing powder would stick. So I'm using this stamp. This is from the Scripty Sentiment stamp set, and I'm inking this design up with the Versamark ink, and I'm randomly stamping this onto the background. It's a little bit hard to see it in some areas, so if you want to, after each stamp, add your embossing powder, that would work as well. I'm just trying to find where I stamp them, and then I'll add some embossing powder. I'm creating a subtle background with this because I'm not going to be using a colored embossing powder for my background. I'm actually using clear embossing powder. So what that's going to do is you're going to get the shine on there, but you're also going to be able to see that color of the distress ink underneath it. I have the Simon Says Stamp clear embossing powder, but there are several from other brands that work just as well. So you can see there's some areas where there's still a little bit of embossing powder. So I'm just taking a regular old paintbrush and just wiping those away. And then I want a few more stamped areas on there, so I'm just going to pick up my stamp once again and just stamp that where I want it on my card. And then I can go ahead and add some more embossing powder onto those areas. They were just a little bit hard to see before in the lighter areas where you had previously stamped. And then I can go ahead and heat emboss that with my heat tool. Alright, so you can see that background, how you get the colored distressing background through the clear embossing paste, or embossing powder. Next, I'm taking some water and just flicking that onto my background. You can add as little or as much water as you want. So I like to just let it sit for a few seconds and kind of soak in and let it really react with the ink. And just remember that this technique will not work with regular inks. You have to use distress ink because it's reactive with water. So once I picked up my water on there, you can see how it left that bleached look. I want a little bit more definition kind of between that background and those stamped images, so I'm just spritzing this with water, and then I'm going to again let it soak for a few seconds, and then I'll take my cloth and pick up that excess water. I like to use a microfiber cloth for this, but you can use just a paper towel if you have one. Okay, so you can really see that pattern in the background now that the distress ink is a little bit lighter. So I want just a sliver of some metallic on my cardstock. So I don't have any metallic paper, so what I'm doing is inking up a piece of cardstock with my VersaFine or Versamark ink. And I'm going to take a little bit of this liquid platinum embossing powder and just pour it all over that. And then I'll go ahead and heat emboss that, and I'll have my own metallic piece of cardstock that I can use on my card. I'm going to go ahead and attach this piece onto my white A2 size card base. You can see that little white area where I left for my finger to go when I was heat embossing it, and it doesn't matter that that's white because it's going to be hidden on my card anyway. So next I'm going to adhere down my distress ink piece. For my sentiment, I'm using the Scripty Things stamp set, the same one that we created the background with. I'm inking this up with the Tuxedo Black Memento ink and stamping that thank you sentiment on a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to cut one of the ends of this sentiment strip with a fishtail banner, so I'm just using my scissors and I'll cut that V shape in the end. And then when I attach this to my card, I'm going to be using the 3D foam squares from Best Creation. I happen to have the smaller ones here, but the large ones would work as well. Then you don't need quite as many on there. I just want to be sure that the entire thing is covered so that it doesn't cave anywhere on there. I think this card would be great to make with different colors because then you can make it as a set of cards. And one thing I always like to do, I like to give sets of cards as gifts because I think they're a really useful gift and everybody loves to get a homemade card. So I'm adding a few gold sequins and I'm just going to add those with the multi-medium in the matte finish. I just place a dot on my card and then press the sequin into place. And all of the supplies I used on this card will be linked below if you're interested in any of them. I think that gold really works well with the metallic strip on the side and also with that purple color. They're just both kind of royal colors. And that is my finished card for today, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you're subscribed to my channel if you're not already. I'm making 3 videos a week currently, so I hope you guys enjoy them all, and I will see you back here next time. Bye everyone!